if you've been kind of keeping track, the last couple of weeks, we've had a Zoom workshop where we talked about COVID risks and the current restrictions with Rachel, who is a public health doctor, as well as being part of our leadership community. And then since the new restrictions have come in, we had another kind of public Zoom to just share how we're feeling and share some ideas. So we thought it would be helpful just to share now a little bit of a recap of those conversations and give you the highlights of what's happening and what's changing and what we're hoping to do. So, Rachel.
Thanks. So, yes, I think we've had some really good conversations, but not everyone has time to look through the whole thing. So it is available, but this is a condensed version for you. So I will quickly recap what we talked about last week, which was really a whistle-stop tour of the virus and what we know so far, and some of the things that we still don't know. And then kind of off the back of that, what are the guidelines? And kind of thinking about what does that mean for individuals, so us as we go about our daily lives, but then specifically what does that mean for places of worship? So if we wanted to meet together as a community, what would our options actually be? So we talked about that, and I'll mention it again in a minute, but I think for me, one of the things that was really important to talk about was our understanding of risk, because I think you can have a good understanding of all the guidelines, or be completely confused by them, which is probably most of us. But actually, we are also very different people, and how we interact with what we think is risky and what we're prepared to do is very different. And it's a balancing act in terms of there's no activity that's completely risk-free. And, you know, it's more just moving up and down this spectrum of there are things you can do that are slightly less risky, things you can do that are slightly more. And for some people, they would feel that on balance, actually doing something slightly more risky is worth it for their other needs. And so I think it's how do we navigate some of those difficult conversations where we want different things and we think different things are okay. So kind of as part of that, we then had an open discussion about what could we do together as a community? What could we meet together? What could that look like? And we kind of concluded that really the sort of meeting that we could have with, say, 30 people in Cars Lane would have a lot of restrictions around it. But that perhaps it could be okay for something like having a watch party where you were all social distancing and behaving in that COVID secure way, but we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that we're used to. So just talking to each other, sharing food. So at that point last week, we thought that actually maybe there was something like a hybrid. We're at the end of our kind of formal community gathering. Maybe people that were willing to take that risk or felt that it would be useful for them could come to the pub as a separate social activity. So that was sort of where we got to last week in our thoughts, was beginning to feel excited about maybe we could meet together in person. I will hand back to Danielle to tell you about where we're at now.
Yeah, so that was last Wednesday, and then of course Monday, the new restrictions were announced for Birmingham, which has made it church places of worship are still allowed to meet, but it's one of the few things that could actually happen. So the people are not allowed to meet indoors together; they're only allowed to meet in groups of 6 outside. So even though we were technically allowed to start meeting in a church setting, we just felt, in talking it over with the core team and with Rachel, just felt like this isn't the right time for us to start something like this, because it's not just about being in a space together, it's people taking public transport. The maximum length of time we could meet together in a church building anyway is about 40 minutes. And then there wasn't much ability to gather together afterwards at all. Like, people would just have to leave. And so I think we made the difficult. we made the difficult call that we would just shelve that to the next 4-week cycle. So actually, that's the, the fact that we had to shift in our thinking has made us have to think again about what is most important to us as a community. Um, because it is a lot of those soft things that we're missing. I've even had a few conversations this week with a few people who are like, I don't know if I could have gone to Cars Lane because it would have been too sad for me to feel like that reminded me of the things that I've lost. Yeah. So so what we're thinking is like how we honor each other's sense of risk, but at the same time give people opportunities to see one another in real life that are safe and outdoors. And I think I wrote this in the blog post this week. It's this we need to kind of like up our creativity and our ways of using the tools that we do have in order to help one another. Because personally, I'm concerned for my own mental health, and I'm concerned for everyone's mental health. That going into winter, um, we want to do what we can to support one another. Rachel, do you want to add to that?
Just that, yeah, I think it's hard, and it's a blow, I think, in some ways, because some of us are really excited at the idea, but I think there are many other ideas, and it's actually really special to be able to come together and think there are some really beautiful things that we could do in smaller groups in different ways that maybe would meet some of our needs that we never even were meeting pre-COVID.
Mm.
And so I think we're at this point now where it's like we're ready for everybody to just share the different things that they would like to do in that kind of micro context. And I think we talked today about not everyone can travel, but actually other people can travel to you. And just kind of how we pull together in that way, understand the different things that we're interested in, the different things we're up for, various different types of walk. So yeah, I think that some really good things are going to come soon.
Mm. Yeah, so I think there's more ideas to come and more creativity to come, and there's some logistical things that we just need to figure out. Like, we know we'd really love for people to know a bit more who's near them in order for meeting up locally, so people don't have to travel. We have to work out how we make that work. For some people, the community groups have been a lifeline, but other people would actually prefer to meet in much smaller groups and just friendship kind of conversations that are less around like what a community group kind of Bible study or anything. Although for some people that's exactly what they need. So there's a few logistical things I think we're going to try to get to the bottom of thinking about. But just to give you an idea, like yesterday there will have, well, by the time you watch this, yesterday there will have been like a physical meetup near Ladywood for a socially distanced coffee in groups of 6 that David and Nets were organizing. We're looking at some communal walks in the next couple of weeks that are kind of have like a creative art element to it. We're thinking about if there's outdoor crafting things we could do, or things where, let's say, we send everybody the same kind of, well, whoever wants to, same kind of resources to create something together that at home, and we share them online. There's limitations on what we're doing, but maybe the limitations can make us a bit more creative and loving to one another, and think about things like sending stuff in the post. And as it gets colder and darker, we need to like show our love and warmth to one another in some more tangible ways, I think. Just to kind of finally add, like, if I said, my mental health, I know I felt I've struggled with it this last number of weeks, particularly. This feels like a difficult season. There's some disappointment and there's some grieving involved in going back into this kind of darker period. And just want to acknowledge that, but also say, like, if you are struggling, there is help available, and please do reach out and let us know, and seek out some of the services that are out there available. We've added a section to our website that's about mental health and grief and trauma with some contact numbers on there. And we're just going to share that kind of thing more often because we want you to be able to access the resources that you need, and to know that you're not alone and that we really care about you.